So I'm going to give you equations for these, and now from here, we're just going to write the new one, dealing with another piece to add in. So the equation that they're going to give you, at least for the first one, let's say it's 2x plus 1. And what I want to do is I want to translate 3 units down. Okay, so I have this equation, 2x plus 1, and now I want to make a new one that's translated 3 units down. So what you look at for this, you guys, is you look at in the template, or in the thing that I have up here on the board, where's down 3 units? Where would the down 3 units be? At the end, back here, right? Down 3. If it's a reflection of the x, if it's vertical, stretch, or shrink, or if it's up or down, that means it's on the outside of what the existing thing was. So anytime you are doing a reflection over the x, anytime you're doing vertical, stretch, or shrink, or anytime you're moving it up or down, rule is put the entire thing in parentheses, so 2x plus 1, so that entire thing, and then put the minus 3 on the outside. Because that's where down 3 was, on the outside. So anytime it has to deal with on the outside, like if it's vertical, stretch or shrink, if it's a reflection of the x, or if it's shifting up or down, we're going to put a parentheses around the entire thing and put it on the outside. Now from here, we're just going to clean it up a little bit. Does the negative 3 get multiplied in there, or do we just add pieces together? Just add pieces together, right? So 2x, does the 2x have any friends? Is there any other x's in the problem? No. And then what's 1 minus 3? Negative 2. And that's it. Again, if it says up or down, we're going to put the whole thing in parentheses and put it on the outside. What if I gave you the same piece, so f of x equals 2x plus 1, and I ask you to translate it 4 units right? Is moving it to the right an inside or an outside situation? Inside. Good, it's on the inside of the parentheses. So here's what you do for that. If you say it goes on the inside, like if it's either reflect over the y-axis, horizontal, stretch or shrink, or shift left or shift right, then where's the x in the problem? And don't just say right there. Where is it in the problem? It's right by the 2, right? So any place I have an x, what I do for these is I put a parentheses in the place of an x. So when it's meant to go inside, I replace the x and put a parentheses. Now, what's a translate 4 units right tell you? Is it add or subtract 4? So it's x minus 4. So what I did, because it belonged on the inside, I made a parentheses where the x was, and I put the minus 4 on the inside like you told me to. Now, let's clean it up. What's 2 times x? What's 2 times negative 4? Plus 1. Now combine like terms. The 2x didn't have any friends, so there's nothing to combine with that. And then what's negative 8 plus 1? Minus 7. So the new equation is 2x minus 7. What do you think? If it's an up or down, you put a parentheses around the entire thing and put it on the outside. If it's a left or right, you put it in parentheses where the x was. Okay? Is everybody okay with that? All right. Next one they're going to do, same type of concept. It's going to have f of x is equal to absolute value of x plus 3 plus 1, and it's going to say reflect x-axis. And this is where it gets tricky. Is x-axis inside or outside? Outside. X-axis is outside, right? It's outside of the parentheses, which means anytime you are on the outside, you put a ginormous set of parentheses around the entire thing. Okay? So for this whole problem, I'm going to put a parentheses around the entire problem. X plus 3 plus 1. And then how do I represent a reflection? What number do I, or what do I put? A negative sign. Good. Now, to simplify that, when you distribute the negative sign, because that's what we're doing is distributing, can the negative sign go inside the absolute values? Can I multiply inside the absolute value like that? Like distribute a number through there? No. Absolute value of those bars are like a big giant wall that you can't get over. Okay? So they do not go in there. So the way you represent that would be a negative just on the outside of that grouping. Okay? But here's the part where most people mess it up. They will get that part no problem because they say, well, I put a negative on the outside. You're right, you did, but here's the part that most people miss. You also have to distribute it to the back number, which is a positive 1 on the outside. So what does that become then? Good. And most people miss that part. Most people get the negative in the front of the whole thing, but they forget about the negative going to the back of it as well. Okay? So be careful. That is a big time miss for a lot of people. All right? Now, here's the nice one. If I were to say reflection over the y-axis, is y-axis on the inside or outside? That's inside. And Elijah and I were talking about this just a little bit ago with absolute value bars. His question was, are those like the parentheses in the thing? Yes, they are. Where would a y-axis go? Inside or outside?
Inside.
Inside, with the x, right? And only the x, and nothing but the x. So for that particular part, I'm going to just do that one in blue real quick. If I put a negative on the inside with just the x, the rest of it doesn't change. It's only the x piece that gets changed. If I put a parentheses around the x, it's not going to affect the 3. It's not going to affect the 1 that's on the outside either. Okay? So just so that you are aware of it, that's how that goes. Excuse me for a second. Yeah. You bet. Goodbye. Dylan, you need to go to the counseling office for your appointment. How do you guys feel about reflections? As far as writing them, you just put a negative sign. And the last ones, what are the only two we haven't talked about yet? Stretches and shrinks. Right. So if it gives you f of x equals the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 5, and I want to vertically stretch it by 2. Is vertical inside or outside? Now, just so that you guys are aware of this, this helped me when I was starting to do this stuff too. X-axis is up and down, isn't it? When I flip it. Vertical is outside, or is up and down. This is up and down. Do you notice that all the verticals are up and down, or on the outside? anytime we transform, if we're on the outside, we're dealing with vertical, up or down. If we're on the inside, you're dealing with horizontal, which is on the inside, or left or right. Okay? So, if it's vertical stretch, this is, remember, just like the first one, where we put a parentheses around the entire problem. So, I'll put it in red so you see it. The big, giant parentheses. X minus 3 minus 5. And then what number goes on the outside? What am I stretching it by? 2. Good. A 2. Then, to clean it up, distribute that in. Now remember, does the 2 go into the absolute value bars, or do they just stay as absolute value bars and I can't bust in? Can't bust in. So what I do with that is I put a 2 in front of the whole thing. Like that. Like you cannot distribute it in there. Huh?
Why?
Can't. It's illegal. Can't get over the wall. Then, from here, what's 2 times negative 5? Negative 10. And you have your new piece. Would I do the same thing if it would have said vertical stretch? If it was a vertical stretch by a fifth, would I have done the same thing?
Yeah.
Just multiplied it by a fraction? Yes, I would have done the same thing. Key to it is, with horizontal, would horizontal go inside or outside? Inside. Now here's the catch that I didn't tell you about yesterday. If I give you the same problem, oops, x minus 3 minus 5, and I want to do a horizontal shrink, by 1/3. Okay? Now, here's the thing. When you look at this problem, and you look at horizontal shrink, and I said by 1/3, and you look at a horizontal shrink, and it says well, A has to be bigger than 1. Is 1/3 bigger than 1? No. Do you remember yesterday a little bit when we were talking about the left and right? Like if I were to solve it, that's where it is the opposite of what it is? Horizontal stretch or shrink is the same way. When I tell you it's by 1/3, it's really not 1/3. What's the reciprocal of 1/3? 3. You just flip it over. So when I put a horizontal stretch or a horizontal shrink in there, whatever number they tell me, I have to flip it over and put that number in instead.
So if they give you a whole number, you make it into a fraction.
Exactly. If I had a whole number like 10, I would flip it over and 1/10 would go in. Okay? So for this particular problem, and I'll put it in blue so you see it, my new one would be absolute value 3x minus 3 minus 5. Again, because I'm just affecting the x when I'm dealing with those. Or if you wanted me to put a parentheses around the x, it's really not going to affect anything else though. Okay? What do you guys think? How do you guys feel? What if I added more of these? What if I did, like I did the other day yesterday where I now gave you 2 or 3 different things to do? What if I gave you 2 or 3 things to do when you're putting in the equation? Could you do it? The biggest thing that I want you to take away from it is look at the wording. It's going to say, here's the graph. We'll use f of x equals, we'll go 4x. Just leave it at that. And it'll say, do a vertical shrink by 0.24 or 0.25, followed by a translation 3 units up. And I abbreviated a little bit of that so that we could have more room to write. So they're giving you 2 different things to do. Do them one at a time. Way back when you were first learning how to solve equations, you were always said, well, let's get rid of adding and subtracting first, then get rid of multiplying and dividing second. Like it's the same thing here. do one step first. A vertical shrink, do I multiply the entire thing or just near the x? Vertical. Is vertical a whole thing? The entire thing, right? So the first step, I'll put it in red, would be 0.25 times 4x. Does anybody know what 0.25 times 4 is? 1. So I get 1x. Now it says, followed by a translation 3 units up. Is up on the inside or outside? Outside. So I'm going to put a giant parentheses around that and put up 3. And from here I would combine like terms if I had them. Do I have any like terms to combine? No. So my final answer would be f of x equals 1x plus 3. So you vertically shrunk it first, and then you translated it 3 units up. Just go in order. Don't try to do everything at the same time because it won't work. Just go in order, and it won't be so bad. And that's the last of it. What do you guys think? We'll see. Okay. Now, I will be honest, I have not put that on big ideas yet, but I will as soon as class gets over. That's the first thing I'll do. Okay? So, on page 16 through 18.
How many questions was the assignment yesterday supposed to be?
Hold on a second. Now, before we go any further, there was some confusion yesterday that I had not only in this class, but in others. Multiples of 3 are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Not like all of them or something like that, or like different whatevers. But it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36. So this one's 12. Okay?
What if you're doing